The Flash is a regular mythic champion in DC Dark Legion. He's what a lot of us refer to as a 10 shard mythic, and that's because if you pull the Flash in the bleed, you're only going to get 10 shards of him, and that's what it takes to unlock him as well. Now, the Flash gets 3 tag synergies. He's going to be getting the Justice League tag synergy, the Flash Family tag synergy, and the Metahuman tag synergy. As of the filming of this video in October 2025, there are no other Flash Family champions, and so that's sort of a defunct tag synergy. We'll take a look at it. You can see it just says Flash Family is gathering. But we do have 2 significant tag synergies for Flash. We'll talk about both of those. So, Justice League, if you have 3, 4, or 5 Justice League champions in your lineup, including Flash, those champions are going to get an increase in their attack and HP. And then for the Metahuman tag synergy, which I kind of feel like every champion is getting these days, if you have 3, 4, or 5 Metahuman champions in your lineup, including Flash, those champions are going to get increased attack and HP as well. So basically, both of those tag synergies are going to do the same thing. Now, the general idea of the Flash's kit is that he's going to transfer energy from himself to his allies. And because of his mechanics, he really works best in a manual setup. And he's really, really good for combat cycle, but he really just can be used in all aspects of the game. He's really one of the best non-limited mythics, or one of the best non-bleed mythics that you can get in the game. And he's actually fairly free-to-play friendly, because while you're going to get much more use out of him at the higher star levels, he really can be used almost at 0 stars, or at a minimum, 5 white stars. You're going to get a decent amount of use out of the Flash, because he's going to be able to cycle the ults of your damage dealers much more quickly. All right, so let's take a look at the Flash's kit. Flash's ultimate is called Speed Force Sharing, and Flash is going to channel his energy to an ally until they're fully charged, or until his energy is depleted. And this is going to increase the target's attack by a certain percentage for 15 seconds. So casting the ultimate here costs the Flash at least 40 energy no matter what. And in auto mode, the skill targets the ally with the highest attack. So there are a couple of important things to think about here. The first thing is, with the casting of the ultimate costing Flash at least 40 energy, if you have to be really careful when you're channeling the energy over, because if you have, let's say you have a champion, so Flash's ultimate is fully charged and he's able to use it. He's got 100% energy there. And you have, let's say, Supergirl. I use those two together a lot. Supergirl at 80% on her ultimate. If you cast Flash's ultimate to transfer energy over, you're going to have a little bit of energy spillover that isn't transferred over to Supergirl, because she's already above 60%. So you have to be a little bit careful. You want to make sure that you time it to where, especially if you're trying to min-max these things, to where like the person that you're transferring the ultimate energy over to has a little bit more than half, but not too much more, because there will be that little bit of spillover that's going to happen. And when you're using this in practice, you'll notice, what happens here if Flash transfers energy over and the person that he's transferring the energy over to already has a little bit of their ultimate built up. You'll see that Flash kind of gets a little bit of a refund into his energy. He potentially could start back over with about 60% of his energy as well. So keep that in mind as you're trying to cycle through these things, or as you're learning how to use Flash's kit. The other thing that's really important here is that in auto mode, he's going to target the ally with the highest attack. And for a setup like Superman Family, that's going to be important, because until you get all of your Superman Family champions fully maxed out, sometimes Superboy is going to end up having more attack than either of your other 2 damage dealers in Superman and Supergirl. And so this could actually kind of screw things up. You actually don't want to run Flash in auto mode on something like Combat Cycle, because if you're constantly cycling the ult of Superboy, it's going to result in much less damage. If you go manual, you're able to do a massive amount of damage by constantly cycling the ults of the champion that can do the most damage on a boss. Now, Flash's first basic skill is going to be called What a Rush. And for this one, Flash is going to run to the side of another ally, and he's going to increase the target's attack by a percentage for 10 seconds. In auto mode, again, this skill is going to target the ally with the highest attack. So definitely keep that in mind as well. Now, if you invest into the Multiversal Force talent for this one, it's going to reduce the cooldown of this ability by a certain amount. The second basic skill for Flash is going to be called Speed Strike, and Flash is going to attack enemies while running in circles. He's going to deal physical damage to them based on a percentage of his attack. This is an AoE ability, but it's a fairly low damage ability. It's not really going to do much to your opponents. If you invest in the Multiversal Force talent for this one, it is going to reduce the cooldown of Speed Strike. And at the higher levels, you definitely want these abilities to be going off as many times as you possibly can. The third basic skill for Flash is going to be called Fast Friends. And this is kind of a buffing ability. Definitely going to provide a lot of dodge here. So the Flash is going to run to an ally's side, and or it says back here, but he's going to be granting them Speed Force Resonance for a small duration, 15 seconds. In auto mode, the skill will target the ally with the lowest HP percentage. So in this case, that's actually fairly helpful. You don't really have to pay attention to that piece of it. Because he's just going to try to help out whoever is taking the most damage. And typically, that's going to be one of your frontline damage dealers, like one of your tanks. So again, to use the Superman family analogy, probably going to be Superman or Supergirl that's going to get hit. Or it potentially could be, if you're using Flash with a team like Justice League Dark, especially if you're going up against like a Legion of Doom type setup, it would potentially be Constantine who's going to be getting this Speed Force Resonance. And Speed Force Resonance is just going to increase your dodge, your ability to withstand or get out of certain attacks that are coming up against you. Now, if you do invest into the Multiversal Force talent for this ability, whenever you cast it, Flash is also going to gain Speed Force Resonance for a short duration as well. And then we have Flash's global, which is called Speed Healing. And this one is going to increase all champions' HP by a small percentage. Jumping over to the force tree for the Flash, we talked about the 3 multiversal force talents for the basic skills, and those are all, I would say, fairly important, but the 2 that really matter here are going to be What a Rush and Fast Friend. The other things that are really important for Flash's kit to work really well are going to be the energy gain bonus and the dodge boost. Now, he will get a little bit from having the effect resistance that can be helpful for his defense. You can see that there are, the standard health and attack here. I don't think that it's really important to pay attention to the attack nodes, but a fairly squishy champion, regardless of where you start him, he's going to be running up to the front of the battlefield. He's going to be all over the place, and you definitely want to make sure that you dump some force into those health nodes. I haven't quite been able to spend much on the Flash here lately because I've been putting all of my force into some of the other champions on my roster, but definitely going to be getting back around to Flash, throwing plenty of force into his kit probably within the next few weeks. We'll see. I'm trying to save a little bit for the inevitable death metal Wonder Woman that's going to be coming in a few weeks. Interesting force tree here with the Flash, especially with that dodge. Not many, if any, other champions have the dodge node. So I do think that one is going to be really important for Flash to try to kind of get out of being hit by certain things. Looking at Flash's gear, eventually I think he's probably going to have Flash tag synergy gear that you'll be able to equip to him. I've been focusing a lot on the Justice League gear, and I almost have a full set of gear for Flash here. As far as transmute priorities, I think you really want to get as much energy gain bonus as you possibly can for the Flash. HP and probably physical defense are going to be pretty important, especially for any bosses or enemies that are going to be HP, physical defense, probably like crit resistance. Those are all going to be important secondary stats to go after. But I would say if you are able to cycle a transmute for a piece of gear and get energy gain bonus on it, and it's better than just the common, like if it's, green or higher, I would definitely keep that on the gear piece that you're trying to transmute. Especially given the fact that, my recommendation is not to use any Intertrons whatsoever. Get an energy gain bonus, probably worth skipping to the next gear piece and trying to do the same there. For legacy weapons or the Flash, I think the most important one to use with him, the one that basically stays on him all the time for me, is going to be Robot Duplicate. Robot Duplicate is going to provide base level HP, is also going to provide HP percent and effect resistance. And then the skill for Robot Duplicate is called Toy Soldier. This is going to increase Flash's HP by a certain percentage, and then it's also going to increase the attack of nearby allies by a certain percentage as well. If you don't have access to Robot Duplicate, there are a few others that you can look at using. I do think that the Starheart staff will work really well because it has that HP on it, and it also has energy gain bonus, which we talked about being a very important stat for Flash. And then of course the skill Allied Force. Each time the wearer casts their ultimate, nearby allies will gain a 10% attack bonus and a 10% physical and spiritual defense bonus for 8 seconds. Now that's at the White Star level. That will increase over time as you're able to add stars to the Starheart staff. Of course, an honorable mention here, if you don't have access to any of the mythic level legacy pieces, will be the Coluan Force Field belt. This belt is going to provide base level HP. It's going to provide physical defense, and it's also going to provide crit resistance. And those, again, are important things to kind of keep Flash alive so that he can do his ultimate. Obviously not an ideal legacy piece because it doesn't have energy gain bonus on it, but certainly one that you could use. And then lastly, I think probably more importantly for non-spenders and folks who are just kind of starting on their DCDL journey, is going to be the Flashbulb Kite. This is one that several champions can utilize to make themselves incredibly useful, and that's going to be because of the energy gain bonus that you can get at full red stars on the Flashbulb Kite. This is a fairly easy legacy This is a fairly easy legacy weapon to max out because you're going to get a ton of copies of it. You have a very high chance of getting it through bleed pools. It's definitely going to take a while for a non-spender to get there, but again, this is one that if you have nothing else to use, it's worth using. And even I've talked to a few whales who will recommend using the Flashbulb Kite even at the higher levels. Like there are some folks who kind of use it to cheese meta brawl fights, if you know that you need to get your ult off before the other team, things like that. And then it could also be useful for certain combat cycle bosses as well. So keep that in mind. If you have nothing else to use, Flashbulb Kite actually can be pretty useful, beneficial for the Flash long term. Those are the basics for Flash's kit. I'm not going to show you this full fight. We'll do another deep dive on Murder Machine another time. I do have some footage that I'm hoping to show you of some other folks doing the Murder Machine fight and getting pretty high scores. I'll show you those at some point in the future. But just so that you can get an understanding of how the Flash's kit is going to work, I'll demonstrate this really quickly for you. We'll go ahead and use all of the Superman family abilities. And then I can use Supergirl's. And then we have Flash right now at full ult energy. We have Supergirl at no ult energy. I'm just going to throw this on her, and we're able to utilize her ult again. We can set up another scenario here for you. So you can see Flash's ult is fully ready to go, and you can see that Supergirl's ult is probably at about 80% or so. Now, if we give this to her, watch what happens to the energy. What's going to happen is Flash is going to fill Supergirl's energy bar all the way to the top, and then he's going to get a refund of energy on his side. Now, he's only giving her a small amount of energy, like I said, maybe about 20%, but the way his kit works, he's only going to give himself back up to about 60% or so energy. So just watch what the bars do and you'll see what I'm talking about. You can see that Flash got most of his ult energy back, but not all of it. And, that's because of that limitation on his kit where he can only transfer up to 60%. If he's like filling up the other health bar, he's not going to get 80% back or whatever whenever that happens. Now, I just demonstrated a little bit of how Flash's kit works in action, and typically this is the point where I would tell you a few teams that you could put Flash into for him to be useful, but the funny thing is he can really be added to pretty much any team and be useful because of the way his kit mechanics work. Now, obviously, Superman Family is a really good landing spot for him meta-wise. I think also for newer players and folks on newer servers, you're probably going to be using Flash with like a Superman hyper carry team. So it would be Flash, Superman, Aquaman, Green Lantern if you have him, or Mira, and then like a fifth champion, so like a Shazam or a Batman or a Wonder Woman. That can fill that tank role. Obviously, he's going to work really well with Justice League Dark, where you're kind of trying to hyper carry your Constantine. He's going to work in a Bat Family lineup where you can cycle Nightwing's ultimate as many times as possible. Work in Legion of Doom with your Sinestro. So just a lot of teams that you can work your Flash into. And then for like a non-spender example, you can cycle Green Arrow's ult to I would say like a really high level of efficiency in a lot of game modes, especially Training Simulator and things like that. But even in combat cycle for single target bosses like Devastator, you can get a lot of use out of Flash plus Green Arrow over there. But you could also use Flash with Black Adam or Red Hood, for example. And then, some more, I would say, like not necessarily niche use cases, but in situations where you might need to heal up significantly, like if you're going to be taking a lot of damage, it might be worth using Flash's ult to cycle the ultimates of your healers. So like Crypto or Raven or whoever else you're using. We talked about the use case of Superboy trying to ramp his ult up as well. Cyborg, the list goes on. Maybe you need to grant yourself some more shields, so you want to give Hippolyta, Dr. Fate another ult. So a lot of use cases for Flash. Just one of those champions that can be used on any team by any person at any star level, and you're going to get a pretty decent amount of return on your investment there. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing or joining the channel as a member. We've actually picked up 2 or 3 members in the last few weeks. I'm really excited about that. I definitely want to be able to provide some high quality content kind of behind the scenes for those of you who care to become members, and we're working on some perks for that as well. Obviously, no pressure there whatsoever. Happy just to have you guys following along on this journey. Join the Discord if you want to hang out a little bit. We're starting to do some more roster reviews type things, and I want to feature those on some more videos. But if not, I hope to see you guys in the next video.